Hey guys, this is Josh, and what you're looking at right here is the visual format of our Cinemaniacs podcast. Unfortunately, last week my system went down for a little while. Finally, it's back up, so now I'm catching up to the actual audio format of our podcast. So what that means is if you've already been listening and you're just kind of going as we upload for the audio form, then you've already heard all of this podcast. This is part one of our trilogy series. For those of you who haven't heard the audio format, then you can just stick around and watch the visual form. If you don't want to stick around to watch all of the visual formats that we'll be having, that's totally fine. Down below I'll be leaving links to where you can just go listen to it. So yeah, hope you guys have a great day. Yeah, bye.
Alright, quiet on the set.
Roll camera.
Pictures up.
Cinemaniacs podcast. Take one. Action. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Cinemaniacs podcast. I'm Noble Banks.
And I'm Josh Buzzard.
Listen guys, we missed last week. I'm sorry. We're in school, but it's over now for me. I'm done until
I'm not sorry.
January. But hey, as an apology, folks, we're going to bring you Star Wars content. So we're going to go through all the movies and talk about them as brief as possible, which is not going to be easy. But hey, so we're not going to do news today, folks. Let's just get right into it. Today we're going to talk about episodes 1, 2, and 3. Josh, tell them about the movies.
Alrighty, so The Phantom Menace. It was released in 1999. Its IMDb is 6.5 out of 10. Rotten Tomato, 55%. Google users, 60%. Attack of the Clones, which was released in 2002. Its IMDb was 6.7 out of 10. Rotten Tomato was 65%, and Google users had it at 58%. And then Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, released in 2005. Its IMDb was 7.6 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, 79%. Google users, 88%.
I'm pretty sure a 60% for episode 2 is being very generous.
Yeah, I was looking at these and I was like, 1 and 2, so Phantom Menace and Attack Clones. I was like, how did they get these ratings?
I don't. All right, so let's start off with The Phantom Menace. This is a big deal. Listen, I was too young to remember seeing this in theaters. I think I did, but I was like 2 years old because I'm a youngling. So,
Really?
yeah.
I feel old.
But I do remember seeing episodes 2 and 3 in theaters. But I remember hearing about episode 1 and how like huge it was because it'd been like 15 or 20 years since the Return of the Jedi, and how like ecstatic everybody was. Like they were so excited for these Star Wars movies, and when they watched it, I've heard they were just like shattered with disappointment. So, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Let's. I don't know even where to start, to be honest with you.
Okay. Well, do you want to start with going through each one and talking about the acting? Because to me, that was probably the biggest notice.
Okay. You want to start with that? Go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so I would say between episodes 1, 2, and 3, the best acting is actually in 3. And I like to think that it's because these same actors have now done it 2 other times, so they've gotten a lot better at it. I know that I love Ewan McGregor. I think he did a great job in like Moulin Rouge is what I know him in. And then he's done a few other things that I can't think of at the moment. And I've always loved him, but I thought he was not very good in episode 1. Same with Natalie Portman. I don't think she did a very good job. There were certain sections where she did okay, but most of the time, I was like, I'm cringing. And then the little boy who played Anakin, he had a few shining moments. The only one that saved that movie for me was Liam Neeson.
Yeah, I would agree with that mostly. I think Ewan McGregor is... he's not great in the first movie, but I just think that's because some of the dialogue he's given is atrocious. But his delivery also isn't very good in that. But I think he's, throughout the rest of the movies, 2 and 3, he's like the best one out of all of them.
Oh yeah, you see a lot of growth.
Because I've heard rumors that they want to try to make a Kenobi like series of movies for the anthology stuff. I hope they do he would. Oh yeah, I think he expressed interest in coming back, so I hope he does because that would be awesome. Let me ask you this, Josh: if you're gonna make a movie, and the main character the main guy who we all know, Anakin Skywalker. Why in the hell would you cast people who have never been in anything or who are garbage actors? Jake Lloyd literally cannot deliver any kind of line to save his life. I mean, it is awful when he's just like, "Are you an angel?" It's like oh my god, I don't believe any of that. And I think partially it's because of the dialogue, because that's what George Lucas can't write at all, is dialogue. He's terrible at writing dialogue, which I'll get to when we talk more about episode 2 dialogue, because there's some stinkers in that for sure. So yeah, and then Hayden Christensen can't act either. Like the best person who plays Anakin is James Earl Jones, and like he's Darth Vader. You know, we're getting ahead of ourselves. I would agree that Liam Neeson's great as Qui-Gon. I mean, as good as he can be in that movie. I think that Natalie Portman is just... I mean, she was like 14 when the first movie was made or something, and she just is useless. Right. You know, and the guy, Jar Jar Binks, like, come on.
Oh, hey, wait a minute. No, Jar Jar's great, and I can debate you on his character actually being a good character.
I mean, okay, I don't hate Jar Jar Binks, right? I know lots of people hate Jar Jar Binks, but I don't...
Yeah, I'm in the minority.
Yeah, I don't like him. He's just like... I know these movies are for kids, right? This movie is specifically like... This is a very kid version. They're all PG, except for the Revenge of the Sith, as PG-13. But like, it's like they're for kids and stuff. But he's just like, it's borderline annoying. I mean, he is annoying on some parts. But you know, whatever.
Well, I was gonna touch on it because you were talking about the ones in the Phantom Menace. Like, pay attention to the dialogue of the beginning of the movies. So the very first one, we have Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. They come together, and just their opening lines and their reactions, because Obi-Wan's like, I have a bad feeling about this, and then Qui-Gon frowns. You really get to see their dynamic in that way. And then you see a mimicry of that in episode 2, and it's between Obi-Wan and Anakin. Right. And you really see that when they start arguing in front of Padme. So it's really cool to see that dynamic change, and how we have the apprentice and master, teaching, going back and forth, and see how each one is different. I was also going to touch on, a lot of people hate on Jake Lloyd, but I think he is much better than Hayden was at playing Anakin, because Hayden never, to me, sold a single thing. If you watch The Phantom Menace, at least for me, there are moments where I actually can connect with Anakin Skywalker. I can't in episode 2, and I can't in episode 3. It's just whining the entire time. One of the specific scenes is when Natalie Portman, Padme, she comes in, and it's the very first time her and Anakin meet. To me, that's just a really cute moment that they have amongst each other, and both of them, I think it was in their eyes and their facial reactions that sold it. And then the other moment was when Anakin was trying to leave, and he walks off, he pauses, and then he turns back and runs back to his mom, and they have that moment together. There's like the two powerful moments for me that Anakin, played by Jake Lloyd, actually sold the character and did a good job. Hayden, I don't think, has any of that.
Yeah, I agree. At that part when he leaves his mom is actually really like touching. It's like, dang, because that's something we all have to go through and stuff. And it's like, oh man, he I think nailed that part. I agree with that. And I think there may be some, I can't think of specific instances, I may have it in my notes, where I liked certain parts of Hayden Christensen's performance. There's not many, and they're rare. I think I don't remember exactly, but Hayden Christensen, I don't think should have played Anakin. I don't think he's very good at it. And again, it's very whiny,
Yeah, but that's also because of how it was written for him,
right.
too, so you can't blame him for, I guess, his lines.
I agree with that.
But he sold everything really rapey to me. So like when he and Padme have to go off, before they go to Tatooine in Attack of the Clones, just every time he delivers a line, if you just look at his eyes, he kind of has like this ominous, menacing look to him. Like, yeah, I'm gonna rape you. It's like, God, like, I'm not even a female, and I was getting uncomfortable by him delivering those lines. Not even to me. I was like, this is really creepy.
Yeah,
Stop.
no, I
So,
definitely agree with that. And let's focus on the Phantom Menace for a little while, just as a movie, and then we'll go through and do
okay.
episode 2 and 3. I think the action in episode 1 is good. I mean, like the fighting and stuff is great. Like the Darth Maul stuff, where they fight Darth Maul, is really fun. It's like, dang, that's awesome. And the music,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, John Williams' music is like the best thing about all 3 of these movies. You could say about all 7 movies actually, but it's the best thing about these 3 movies is John Williams' music, because it's just like, one, it connects it to the other movies, and like and some of it, it's like, it makes the emotion when the actors can't make the emotion. The music does. But I think right from the start of Phantom Menace, it just feels a little, I don't know, artificial, which is weird saying because it's a movie where there's laser swords and force powers. But like, the thing that was so great about the original trilogy was that like they didn't have CGI to fill in the holes or whatever. This one, they have almost nothing but CGI. I guess the first one's not as bad as like 2 or 3. But it's like, it doesn't feel like a real place. It feels like I'm watching a computer. It feels like I'm watching an animated movie with live action actors versus, the other way around. Versus real actors on a real set. There's less politics in the first movie in Phantom Menace than the other ones, but I think they dive a lot into like trade federation stuff and like stuff that nobody cares about.
What? I disagree. I think we actually need more of that. You don't. I guess I'll talk about later in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, but like, we're just thrown into this moment, and they never explain why the Trade Federation is attacking Naboo and has a embargo against them and not allowing anything to go into the onto the planet. And then furthermore, it also, you're like, okay, well, you have control of the planet because you have a blockade around the entire planet. There was really no need for them to go onto the planet, besides Sidious wanting them to do that. You don't get to see the dynamic. Like, I've actually listened to the book of this movie, so much better, and there's so much more detail I wish they would have gone into, because it can kind of leave the audience a bit confused with what is motivating them to do what they're doing.
Right.
With
maybe
Naboo.
what I was saying is like they show a lot of politics that isn't shown well. Like it's not interesting to the movie. Is what I was trying to get at. Plot wise, it's kind of like, I don't know. It feels weird to me, some of it, because like, okay, and I watched the movie kind of just like, the first movie I've seen a bunch, so I kind of just watched it. I put it on and I took notes and stuff, but like, it was just kind of, I didn't take as many notes because I've seen it a bunch of times. But like, I've always been confused of like, they go to Tatooine because of they need parts for their ship, right? That's when they get just tangled up with Anakin and all them stuff, right? Is that how it goes? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then like, I forget why I guess he just runs into Anakin because he's looking for parts. That's right.
Yeah, he goes to that shop. Yeah. Fucking Watto. He's.
But like, I don't know. It's hard to find a specific point to talk about because there's so much.
Okay, so with what I was gonna say is, for me, probably one of the most exciting moments of the Phantom Menace. Even though I do like Darth Maul and what happened, I have actually, know more of the extended universe, and so I know that they nerfed Darth Maul a great deal, and in the book he's just so much better. So for me, it's a disappointment, I'm sure, for just moviegoers that they like Darth Maul. So, but that aside, I think the most exciting moment of the movie is actually the pod race, because it combines tension with comedy, because there's that one alien who can't take off from the start. This is the first time that you actually, in 1 through 3, and I think the only time, where you get to see Jabba the Hutt, which they don't go into detail about him, and I wish they would have. Like, they don't explain that this is all being put on by Jabba, and the reason why Jabba puts those on, which is power and to show his power, and a lot of the other Hutts do it on all their Hutt-controlled territory. And in that section is the first time in 1 through 3 where we will actually see Warwick Davis, who later on will go on to play an
He
Ewok
plays Wicket.
in 4 through 6. Yeah, so I was happy for that. I think I was smiling the most between the pod race compared to everything else.
Who does Warwick Davis play in the pod race?
Warwick Davis, if you watch, I wrote some notes. When Skywalker's pod stalls, and after Anakin wins, we cut to the crowd, and Warwick Davis is there. You'll see him. He has like some crazy hair
so it's just
going
like he's
on.
not like in a costume. He's just Warwick Davis with like makeup and stuff on.
Yeah. So people would actually get to see what that actor actually looks like without having to look him up if they just pay attention to the movie and know who to be looking for.
I agree with you that the pod race is the most the most exciting part of the movie, because it's a lot of fun and it feels just like a ride, like at an amusement park or something, it's it feels like a ride and stuff. But I feel like this whole movie was kind of made because George Lucas was like, I just really want to make more toys. There's the thing. And so a lot of it just feels like it's like for marketing. Yeah, it's been a while since I made a movie. I know what to make a Star Wars movie, and it's like, okay, maybe what he should have done is left 4, 5, and 6 as 1, 2, 3, and then gone on to continue Luke's story. But whatever.
I think that
we got what
we
got.
I was gonna say that one redeeming quality, and I wish that they would have had more of this writing, because the only thing that I thought that had amazing writing dialogue-wise, because all of it was really subpar, was when the Queen and the Jedi, they're running out. They're trying to free everyone from the palace, and they're running out, and Liam Neeson, as Qui-Gon, sees a B-1 battle droid. It's the first time you see him, and actually see interaction, and he goes up to it, and he tells them where they're going. Coruscant. And he's like, Coruscant, that doesn't compute. Oh, wait. And then, like, he literally does, like, the most dramatic finger point, and then goes, you're under arrest. And I love it. I was actually laughing and smiling at that, because, like, just how animated the droid was, and you finally get to see, besides R2, some personality in the droids, which will be mimicked later on in the movies, with specifically the B-1 battle droids, and then also later on in the animated series and movies.
How do you feel about the Gungans, the Jar Jar Binks race of people? Like, especially, I actually like the underwater sequence in the movie, where there's always a bigger fish, right? I actually kind of like that. I think it's kind of fun. I wish it would have been longer. It's kind of like a few minutes in the movie. But the whole underwater city, like they swim under there, and then like those little doors are like a jail that they go through, which is really cool. And then I don't know what the guy's name. I'll call him in my notes. I put Don Sluglione.
That's big.
That's
Boss
right. Yeah, that guy goes, that guy.
Yeah.
He's just kind of like weird. I mean, it's kind of a weird place, but it's also like it's funny-ish. I mean, I was like, as a kid, I guess, as a little kid, I could see it being great. As an adult, I'm kind of like, this is kind of boring. Like, I don't really know why we're here. You swam away to get away from things, but I know why Jar Jar's here, because he's in deep doo-doo. But like, why are Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon there again?
I mean, if you watch this movie, a lot of people are going to be disappointed, but critically watching it, there are actually some really good foreshadowings and then just callbacks. So like I said, if you go back to the very beginning of the movie, we see how Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are different. He also says at that time, the living force, and it's the first time we hear about it in 1 through 3, and I think it's never really talked about after that. But then in that specific sequence, I actually made a note about that. When they enter the Gungan city, you should really pay attention, because Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon enter differently. Qui-Gon marches right in, and then Obi-Wan actually kind of goes in and looks back at the door, and is kind of like looking to see how it, works and functions.
Right.
Again, at the very beginning, Qui-Gon says, live in the moment, so it's always going steadfast and forward, while Obi-Wan was like, no, we need to think about things, which will then be mimicked later on in the movie with the fight with Darth Maul, because Qui-Gon will charge forward while Obi-Wan will have to then stand and wait and contemplate. And it's just this constant, one is always moving forward and not taking time to think and just bursting through walls, while the other one is more contemplative and thoughtful. And I just love how that's started in the movie. It's reiterated in sections like that, specifically that door, and then towards the final end of it, it is given again so that you get to see their characters throughout the entire movie.
Yeah,
they're different.
yeah, I really like that, and that's those little details are really cool. Like the dynamic of them is really good. I really do enjoy that about all the movies. Even the, like you were saying, even the dynamic between Obi-Wan and Anakin is still like cool, especially in the third movie. It's still really like, it's fun. It's like, it's funny, so it makes things sadder as it happens. As things get worse. Let's talk about the final fight with Darth Maul and like Qui-Gon Jinn's dying, because I think Qui-Gon dying was really sad to me, because I like Qui-Gon Jinn a lot as a character and as acted by Liam Neeson. I think it's a really like sweet moment between him and Obi-Wan when he's like take care of Anakin. He like could sense Anakin was going to be this great Jedi, even though Obi-Wan, played by Ewan McGregor, like it seemed hesitant about it,
Which
those are really.
His character is an asshole in the movie if you pay attention, because he even says a specific line where he's pretty much putting down. You go ahead and then I'll look for it, because I think I wrote it down.
Oh yeah, no, I was just saying that like I agree. He is kind of a jerk. He doesn't say thank you very much either. When like at the beginning, a droid brings him a drink and he just like takes it from him. It's like, wow, dude, did they train you manners at the Jedi school? Whatever. But I thought the fight between Darth Maul and Qui-Gon Jinn was really like cool. A lot of the fight scenes in the Star Wars movies, unfortunately, feel way too choreographed. I put notes, especially in the third one. It's almost like a dance, almost, because there's so many like, it's like, okay, they're watching where the thing's gonna go next because they know it's gonna go there. But this fight feels a little less rehearsed. It feels like there's two of them taking on one guy with with a long lightsaber or whatever, and it feels a little more natural than normal, which is cool. Some of the kicks and stuff, you can kind of tell that they were like prepared for them. It's weird. I don't know. It could be how it was edited as well. Maybe isn't as fluid as we'd like or whatever. But I just thought, like, out of all the fight scenes in most of the movies, this one's pretty good because it doesn't feel as rehearsed, as choreographed as the other ones. And then whenever he Darth Maul stabs Qui-Gon, I was like, dang, like that hurt my feels, especially when the reaction of Obi-Wan was like, that's like, he yells and stuff, and I was like, oh man, that I think that's when Ewan McGregor's the best in the movie, is when he's being emotional, and at the end and stuff, when he dies, it's like, oh. Then when he cuts freaking Darth Maul in half, I'm like, as a kid, it was weird to me because like he slices him and then he falls, still in one piece, and then as he's flipping, his legs come off, and I'm like, one, that's gross. That's disturbing as a kid. And two, I was like, how is there no blood? How does it work? I mean, I get it that the things are so hot that it like shears the,
Yeah, it cauterizes the wound.
Yeah, cauterizes. Yeah. But I mean, I think that's I like the first movie. I think the first movie has redeeming factors to it, because there's good stuff, and there's a whole bunch of the movie we didn't cover. The Queen Amidala switching with a young Keira Knightley, and there's a whole bunch of we didn't cover. But listen, it's going to be a long podcast, so What else about Phantom Menace you have to say?
I guess just to wrap up for my point, I would say that That line was from Obi-Wan, and it was Qui-Gon when he's coming back and he's dropping off parts. It's, why do I sense we've picked up another pathetic life form?
Oh yeah.
So this series and not this movie but the other two specifically are really good about making you not like one of the two main characters, and I think that's really sad. And then when we were talking about the politics, I really wish that we would have seen more of Supreme Chancellor Valorum, because
Mhm.
we don't get to see all the behind scenes things that are going on with that, and they're pretty important and pretty important to the entire story overall. And then
Right.
when you see later on when Valorum gets dethroned, Padme is like a vote of no confidence. You see his reaction and he looks shocked at everything, and unless you have read the book or you've heard the book or you just know exterior information, you won't know why he reacts that way, because if you watch the movie, it's just like, okay, he's being over dramatic, and he's not. If you actually watch just the movie as itself, you don't understand like why he's in the situation he is, and it was only touched upon that had he had some stuff going on, accusations thrown his way. So I wish that we would have
Mm.
gone into more of that stuff, but
That
the
would have been
dialogue
interesting.
was just terrible. The script was okay, and I would
Yeah,
have cared more about Qui-Gon if he stayed longer or had better written lines.
that's true. Real fast, a couple things that we forgot to touch on that I think are important. Midi-chlorians.
Midichlorians.
How do you feel about that crap?
Um, I think they're okay. I wish that they were better, but I prefer not knowing about the Force,
Right.
because there's too much that you can just go on. It can become like Dragon Ball Z, where it's like, oh, he has 20,000. Oh no, this one has 30,000. So I wish it wouldn't have been put in.
Yeah. So here's my very quick opinion on it. I think whenever you first hear about the Force, right, in episode 4, obviously, when Obi-Wan talks about how it's like it's everywhere and it flows through us and all this stuff, and like if you learn how to control it, you can become a Jedi. So basically, like through persistence or whatever, you can be like a badass.
Hmm.
But with midi-chlorians,
There you go.
mini-chlorines, it feels like, okay, you have to be born a certain way, and you have to be like, it's very selective of how things are. It's like, oh, that sucks, because like as a kid, who wouldn't want to be a Jedi, right? Like, oh
All right.
man, maybe I can strive towards being a Jedi, but no, you have to be born with a gene that makes you a Jedi. I think
Yeah,
that's
you have
stupid.
to have a certain amount.
Right. And also, the Virgin Mary stuff with the mother, I think, was very heavy-handed and very like. I mean, it's only mentioned a couple scenes. It's like, oh, there was no father. It just kind of happened, and I'm like, all right. And I know it's supposed to be like mythology, like that happens to a lot of mythology and stuff. But it's like, when that happened, I just rolled my eyes like strongly. I was like, oh, it was a very like, a very brief, but I felt like, okay, that was kind of dumb.
Yeah, it's out of
And
left field. You never see anything else like that, in the movies at least, and in the extended universe, I haven't seen it in Legends, but
right.
I haven't read or listened to all of it. But yeah, it's just like
Yeah, it's like, oh,
that's weird.
he was born from the Force. Ooh, that's stupid. But again, guys, I'm sorry if we didn't cover. Well, I know we didn't cover everything. Listen, we'll probably come back to these movies. We're definitely going to come back to these movies and talk about like
Oh yeah, there's a
detailed.
lot more.
There's a lot more. Let's get on to episode 2, Attack of the Clones, which I think is the worst of the 3 movies.
Yeah. Well,
Because
first off, can you tell me how you would rate them? So like best to
okay,
worst.
best to worst out of the prequels, I would go episode 3,
Mhm.
episode 1,
Mhm.
episode 2.
Yeah, that's mine. Okay, now go on. Yeah, sorry, I had to know.
No, it's okay. Because, like I said, episode 1, episode 3 have way more there's redeeming factors about episode 1 and 3. I think the only good stuff in episode 2 are the first 30 minutes, maybe the first like 25 minutes, maybe, and then the war at the near the end,
Yeah, I like
and even
that.
that's not that great. Okay.
It's cool you
So
do get to see the Death Star, though. This is the first time in the prequels you get to see notions of that.
oh really?
Yep.
Where at?
If it's at the very end when they are losing the war on Geonosis, and Dooku said that we have to retreat, and so then you see the head Geonosian dude saying that he's going to send his people underground. And as he's saying that, he is hitting a button, and you see this hologram go out, and it's the hologram of the Death Star, which is weird because it makes it, and they made it seem like the Geonosians came up with the plans, when later on we find out that there's an actual guy who built the Death Star who came up with the plan. So it's kind of the mythology between it is kind of weird. I don't know, but yeah, I saw that and was like, wow.
I think episode 2 is boring.
Yeah.
And it's like Roger Ebert, who's a film critic for those that don't know, he loved episode 1 and 3. He gave it 4.5 stars out of, or yeah, how does he rate his things? Like 3.5 out of 4. He gave it almost like, the first 2, right? Which is like, I can understand maybe doing that for the third one, but for the first one, I don't know.
Yeah, no.
But this one he gave 2 stars. He calls it. He just says it's like a long. It's like C-SPAN. Like nobody watches C-SPAN, and that's what this is like. Because there's a lot of talking and a lot of talking with a lot of bad dialogue.
A lot of whining.
A lot of whining. And for those who don't know what episode 2 is about, it's like it takes place like 10 years or something after episode 1, and now Queen Amidala is no longer queen. She's now senator. Padme or whatever is now senator. And there was an assassination attempt on her by some chick, and Jango Fett, the more useful of the Fetts. And which is a whole thing. Once we get to episode 5, we'll talk about, because Boba Fett is useless. Which I thought the first, like I said, the first 25 minutes is cool because it's like a spy thriller. Like there's you're like, oh, who's trying to kill this, the senator, who's doing all this stuff, and like the Obi-Wan and Anakin have to like protect her and stuff, and like I think that's really some interesting stuff because and you see some pretty interesting directing from Lucas there, I think, because like I said, it's just a different aspect from the movies we've seen before. But then it gets thrown out the window with this love story between Padme and Anakin.
Yeah, it feels so forced.
Hey, there's a pun for you. Yeah, because like the whole thing is like they go off and like he has to protect her and she has to go somewhere. I forget why she has to leave, other than the assassination attempt.
That's why, to protect her life.
Yeah, to protect her life, and so Anakin goes with her to save her, or to keep her safe or whatever. And then they start falling in love, even more so than they were already or whatever, which is a little creepy because if she was, 15 or something and he was like 8 in the first movie, that's a little weird. No, I think he was like 10 or something, but whatever. Which means he's 20 in this, and she's like a solid almost 30 or whatever.
I thought he was younger than that, but yeah.
I thought he was, I don't know, I assume because Hayden Christensen's like 23 in this movie, so if it's 10 years later, I said, like, the assassination subplot is interesting, but I wish it were better. I wish the whole movie would have been more focused on that versus just being garbage after the first 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. You think the dialogue's bad in the first movie? Let's talk about dialogue in this movie, especially the love dialogue. Let me tell you. Let me drop you some knowledge, some of this dialogue. So they're talking. Padme and Anakin are talking about how much they love each other, and here is a line said by Hayden Christensen, written by George Lucas. This is why he got a divorce. Okay, he goes. This is the line. I'm haunted by the kiss that you never should have given me.
Oh, I know what part you're talking about. Yeah.
What? Who writes that? Like,
especially since he's the one that kissed her.
Right. It's wooden. All the dialogue's wooden. The emotion is wooden. I mean, there's just so much bad in this movie. I think, okay, back to the first 30 minutes, because let's talk about the good first.
I disagree with you on that, but all right.
Well, listen, the better. Let's talk about the better than the rest stuff. I think the chase sequence is cool once she breaks through the window, that little thing throws the slugs through the window. Which, why use slugs? Why not like gas or like a one beam through the head? But nope, you got to use slugs, poisonous slugs, or what, the millipede thingies or whatever. But then Obi-Wan jumping out the window, grabbing onto the thing was like, okay, that's a little dumb.
And
But
not
the
his
whole
character.
not right. He would be more like chill about it.
Reserved, yeah.
I did think the speeder chase through the Coruscant was kind of cool visually. It's like, wow, that's I like the city planet look, and then the foot chase through the bar and cantina stuff or whatever was pretty cool. I like that ambiance a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But literally, I think that's the best part of the whole movie. Is that?
Okay, let
Now,
me
why do you
explain
disagree?
some things. Okay, so there are some good things and bad things in the smaller detail. So the foreshadowing of what's going to happen to Anakin is pretty cool. You'll see Anakin in darker clothing, so he has like this dark maroon color and brown, while when you see Obi-Wan has these really light colors. So that's really cool to see. Judge Dredd was getting out in 1995. This movie was far past that. It was in 2000s, right?
2002.
And Judge Dredd, I believed more that we were actually there in Mega City 1 than Coruscant Underground City area. It just didn't seem believable to me. It didn't feel that way. It seemed like CGI. When we go into the
Right.
cantina that you're talking about, if you notice on one of the screens there's a pod race. Why does Anakin not even notice it? And that's a big part of his life, and in this movie he's torn because he keeps remembering his mom, his old life. He keeps reiterating how he was when he was a kid and how he dreamed of Padme, once again, the old life. So why does this not hit him? It should. And then the other thing was Jar Jar. Jar Jar very first comes over to Anakin, is like, "Oh hey Annie," and instead of him greeting him, all he does is he starts like undumping his woes about how Padme hardly recognized him. It's like it's weak dialogue. It doesn't make any sense. If they haven't talked in forever, why would he do this? Later on, he goes on to dump his shit on Padme right after she called him mature. Comes like this whiny little baby. So none of this stuff makes sense. It's
Yeah.
terrible writing all the way through. And then it's super cringeworthy at the very beginning when Obi-Wan and Anakin argue in front of Padme.
That's true. Yeah.
You do get to see that they're strained, but it's like there's writing to make something cringeworthy where you will cringe and you're like, okay, I understand why they did this. To me, I think a lot of comedies do really good at this. The first one I think of is Superbad. Next one would be like Harold and Kumar. They write these kind of dynamics. But in this one, it's like, no, it's bad because the acting was bad. That's why you cringe. You don't cringe because of the weird moment. You cringe because the acting is just terrible.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. And when I was saying the first 30 minutes, I meant like, it's still not good. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying like, if I had to find a moment in the whole movie that I liked more, it would be the first chunk of the movie, because it starts off, with an action piece sort of, and like, yeah, I mean, there's more to the first that I like than the rest of the movie, because the rest of it's just boring.
Oh, and then you see some jackassness. So first off, and I wrote this specifically just because of how just annoying it was. Let's go to Obi-Wan for a second. I love Obi-Wan, but he did some shitty things. When we very first see him, Anakin is sweating, and he's like, calm down, don't be sweating. And he's kind of like doing this like pal kind of act. But then later on, and in the movie it would just be several hours, Obi-Wan's all telling Anakin to be mindful of his thoughts and feelings because of the commitment to the Jedi. It's like, well, where the fuck was that when the very first thing was happening? What the fuck? And
Yeah.
then I literally wrote God King Anakin just because within the first 30 minutes you hate Anakin Skywalker, or at least I do. There's no redeeming quality about him. He's whiny, he's arrogant, he's an asshole. So I wrote God King Anakin. So when he's chasing the bounty hunter, Mr. Man, who thinks that he's all that, and he even comes across that he is more the master than Obi-Wan. He loses his damn lightsaber when he gets shot at when he's trying to cut into the shuttle. Even as a Padawan, by this point in his training, he should know how to hold on to his damn lightsaber, and he
Right.
shouldn't jump like that. So I'm just like, what the fuck? So I hate it. I hate this
Yeah.
movie.
It was definitely a journey to get through. I started watching it in the middle of the day, and I paused it and like did not want to come back to it at night because I was like, this is rough to get through. Okay, let's move on from the first 30 minutes, and let's just like talk about it as a whole, because like I just can't find any point of this movie that is redeeming at all.
I can tell you a funny part.
What's the funny part?
Okay, and it literally had me laughing, and I actually liked what Hayden did. I know that it wasn't meant for his character, but it was funny. So, like,
Right.
it's right after Padme and him kiss, right? She pulls away, and she's like, I shouldn't have done that. Watch his face. Holy crap. He has the most confused and hurt face that I've ever seen in, like, movie history, and I just died. I was like, yeah, because I actually... Like, I think every guy could put themselves in those shoes. So that was like the one moment that it sold it for me for his character, and I just died. It was hilarious.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Okay, I did like sort of. I think it was. I put Camino. I thought the planet that Obi-Wan goes to learn that when he learns with the clones. I thought it was an interesting planet. I thought it looked terrible with the CGI.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting, and I would have liked to stay there a little longer. I don't like the fact that the clones are clones. I just think it's kind of, and I get it, it's been that way or whatever, but I just like for some reason I like the idea of again, you train to be a clone trooper or whatever. I think or a trooper, stormtrooper, because in the original ones you didn't really think they were clones, in the original movies.
Yeah, they weren't.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like the fact that they're clones, especially from Jango Fett, who we know nothing about other than he's on Camino.
Yeah, and he dies so fast later in the series.
He actually does more than Boba Fett does. And I thought the whole the fight between him and Obi-Wan was kind of cool, for the most part. I mean, it was kind of dumb. They're slipping in the rain or whatever.
Yeah.
But whatever.
To which he loses his lightsaber, which he had scolded Anakin for.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. I do think it's cool though that he included Boba Fett as the in there as well, as a kid. One thing that I do think the movies do well is they tie in to the 4, 5, and 6 pretty well. He does a good job, especially with number 3, at connecting things. And it's little stuff like that, like Boba Fett, having that is okay, that's an interesting, even though his motive's kind of off, is kind of, because Jango Fett gets killed by Mace Windu, so why the hell, I mean, we don't have a Boba Fett movie, but shouldn't Boba Fett be after all Jedis, or looking for Mace Windu, and not dealing with anything else? But I don't know. I thought Jango Fett was pretty interesting. I said Jango Fett's a cool idea, but again, it's not executed. He's there for, we see him maybe 30 minutes, not even that, maybe 15 minutes in the whole movie, and that's it.
You don't get his character. You don't know that the reason why Camino is full of water is because of a global warming catastrophe that happened on the planet, and the reason why the aliens look like they do is because they genetically modified themselves to be that way. You don't find out that they have a hierarchy where their eyes are dependent on where they are in the society, and then you don't find out that, I'm pretty sure it's Django, is actually Mandalore of the Mandalorians, which is a badass role, and that could have tied into it. So there's all these really interesting things that you just don't get.
And the super tall neck bros are they're weird, and I mean I know they're aliens. That's cool. You don't have to have every character be a human, right, or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm just I'm just it's a little, the CGI is just bad enough. I'm okay. I put the CGI is bad even for 2002 standards, because it's
bad.
Bad.
If you look at they could have sold it so much better. If you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger in Total Recall, which came way before this movie,
right,
you believe the triple nipple alien is actually that. You believe that you're on Mars. Why could they not have? You could have sold this so much better and not even use CGI if you didn't want to. They could have done it.
Let's talk about the flying through the asteroids part right after that. Later, it's so. I disagree. I think it was boring because there's the chase is 2 minutes maybe, no music except for the very end. They're just flying around which you don't need music for everything, but this felt like it's a high speed chase through asteroids. You kind of need a little bit of something.
Yeah, you do.
And it's just you hear the ship noise, which doesn't make sense because it's space, and then you hear whatever. It's also there's lightsabers. But you're flying through space, and it's okay. You're going through asteroids. He's shooting asteroids. And he's just playing. It's like he's playing the game Asteroids, you know. And then like, okay, it's just like super boring. And after this big long fight, you have this slow speed chase through asteroids. It's like, okay, well, what? You're just like, you're killing. The problem with this movie is like the pacing is like, there is no pacing. It's just off.
Yeah, it's just kind of everywhere.
It goes from like action to like boring dialogue and whatever, and then back to some action, and then just politics, everything. It's just off.
Well, the reason why it's interesting, at least for me, is because you get to see a rationalization of the universe there, and then you get to see its contradiction later. So we see that he supposedly died, Obi-Wan, because he shut off his shuttle, and so you can't see it anymore. So that lets you know in the world that shuttles can be picked up so long as they are open and they have power going through them. Okay, so now he goes onto the planet. On the planet, why does Count Dooku not notice that he's there? Count Dooku would have noticed that he's there because he's powerful in the Force, which is reiterated later in Episode 3 when Anakin and Obi-Wan can feel Count Dooku, and in this movie when they feel danger in the beginning of the movie, which that itself isn't, that they put that on its head. So why is it then that this place, which has a droid factory, which would then mean logically that it's going to have planetary defense, that they wouldn't be doing regular security checks, and we know that his shuttle's turned on because he uses the power to it, so they would have picked up his shuttle. So why the fuck was none of that talked about? Like, the logic doesn't make any sense in this movie. Like, there's no logic. It's like, this works now because it does. This doesn't work because it does. Yeah, exactly. So I think to me, it plays along with the pacing. So it's not so much they have a set pacing, the movie goes with the pacing. It's that the pacing is like here, 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 and the logic is there. Like, they're all just everywhere.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, you bring up some really good points. Yeah, I think, and it sucks saying this because, like, I love Star Wars so much, and I love the original trilogy so much, and, like, you know, I mean, they're the movies that made me want to make movies, right? It's just like there's a place in my heart for them, but when there's a movie so bad, it's almost like it's hard to admit when there's things that are bad, but it's like some of it's just so bad. And speaking of the factory, I thought that I didn't care. I'm gonna say that so much about this movie. I didn't care. I don't care. I didn't care about the factory. I thought it was just CG garbage. I mean, I think it's an interesting idea. Oh, they're building robots. Like, they're building droids. That's cool, you know. But it's like, also, why are you still doing that when you have a clone army now? Which I guess the clones weren't bad, so never mind. But it's like, okay, you know, the whole chase through the factory was kind of just, you know, whatever, boring. I didn't care. Like I said before, the whole like, oh, I'm not gonna go help Obi-Wan because I have to protect you, Padme. And Padme's like, well, I'm going, so you can go with me to protect me. I'm like, that's cool of her. Like, that was a character defining moment, if you will, of her character and of his, because he was like, no, I'm gonna stay here and be a wimp. And she's like, I'm gonna go off and be brave. You know.
Did you notice her other character defining moment when they cut back? So Obi-Wan is giving the message, and then he gets attacked, right? When they go from Mace Windu, who looks shocked, which Samuel L. Jackson sold it, we go back to her, and if you're paying attention, she has a little smirk on her face that then turns to horror. Like, for some reason, the actress was smirking as we come back to her. To me, I was like, what the fuck?
That's weird.
Yeah.
You say that Samuel Jackson makes it. I think that's one thing I like about all three of these movies is him. Yeah. Even though he's in so little of the first movie. I mean, he's great in lots of stuff he does. I think he's one of those characters that's like, or one of those people in the movie that I really like a lot. And even as a kid, me and my dad were like, "Oh, Mace Windu's awesome," because he is, you know. And he also had a purple lightsaber, which is a whole funny story. If you haven't heard it, is like, yeah. He's like, oh, all the everybody else has green and blue lightsabers, can I have a different color? And George Lucas is like, we'll think about it, and he gives him the purple one, and he's like, he gave the black guy a purple lightsaber. Anyway, it's really funny, it's good, but he's great. I mean, as good, he does the best of what he's given. You know, like all the characters, like a lot of them do. You know, his dialogue is delivered really well compared to some others.
Yes.
I also think the other good thing about at least 2 and 3 is Christopher Lee as Count Dooku.
Yes, Christopher Lee does so good.
Because Christopher Lee's like a Shakespearean actor who's in this movie, and I got a little Saruman vibe because these movies came out the same year as Two Towers, even though they were shot probably years apart. But I do like. I think Count Dooku as a character is not great. I mean, he's okay. And I've seen some stuff from the Clone Wars, like the cartoon and stuff, which is awesome, by the way. The 2D animated one, even the 3D animated one's good, but I'm talking about the 2D animated one from like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, the movie that came out before the Clone Wars television show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't think that was Christopher Lee, but Count Dooku's character is better in that one. And these ones, he's okay, but like I think it's performed really well by Count Dooku. Some of the stuff he says is like powerful. You know, I put Christopher Lee is powerful as always because he's just like his voice is so booming and it makes his character feel more powerful than some of the other Sith people. Like Darth Maul is cool, he's a cool character, but in the movie we don't care about him too much because he's just kind of a quiet guy, you know. But this one, you know, he's more of the diplomat, the more of the, you know, the guy who's stoic and talks a lot and stuff.
Yeah, and the best scene of the movie is after, or at least for me, when Obi-Wan gets caught and he's being imprisoned by Count Dooku. Although I really wish that Count Dooku would have brought up the Living Force because he brought up Qui-Gon and they would have had a little bit more back and forth because I feel like that we were lacking there. But to me, that's the strongest scene, like talking in the movie, and I think it's because Christopher Lee really sold it.
If freaking Obi-Wan wasn't spinning around, there's a moment when he's spinning around in a circle and Ewan McGregor's still looking back and it just like looks like the most awkward and like stupid thing I've ever seen. He's looking back like, I'm seeing you. It's like, okay, that's stupid.
Yeah.
But I think Christopher Lee is definitely the most, like, one of the most positive things about this movie. It's like, okay, watching him, I'm like, okay, this is cool. He feels like a Sith Lord, you know.
Yes.
Which is cool. I thought C-3PO was very poorly represented in this movie, and I love me some C-3PO. I think, Anthony Daniels does a good job and stuff, but like he's like CGI through half the movie, you know, like, oh, he's on the conveyor belt, he's CGI, he's like, oh, look at these pratfalls and stuff. It's kind of funny, I guess, but it's like, it's kind of cringeworthy as well. And then he gets his head put on battle droid and stuff, and like, I don't know.
Did you notice how, like, and that's why I gasped as you reminded me that he either, one, we weren't explained why he was taken, or two, he was just straight up, like, jacked from, like, Shmi's family, because she that was with them, and then, like, he gets on the ship with Anakin, and they're like, bye. Like, I was like, wait a second, did they just steal this droid?
They just, well, technically it was Anakin, so, I mean,
yeah,
just,
but, like,
he's
with the family. Like,
true.
He'd been with that family for 10 years.
Yeah. I thought the reunion between them was kind of, I think Anthony Daniels pulled it off really well. It was like the creator, you know, he's excited to see Anakin. Anakin's just like, hey 3PO.
Yeah, I know.
He's like, hey 3PO, how's it going? It's like, dude, if I saw 3PO again and he was finished, I'd be ecstatic. I'm like, whoa, like somebody finished you, like it's awesome, you know, because he doesn't get to finish him in the first movie. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, let's talk about while we're talking about Tatooine and talking about Shmi. I thought the stuff could have been handled so much better than it was. I thought some of the mom's death stuff was touching, and especially the John Williams music there in that part was like, oh,
that made it, yeah.
It made it. And so like when he sees him and she's like, oh, you know, you're so handsome, you know, you've grown up to be this guy. I was like, oh dang, she sells it more than he does, you know.
Which her acting improved so much more too, I think.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, 5 years can do a lot, I guess, between movies. But I thought that was a cool moment until he gets like all upset and starts killing the sand people. I hate them, you know, that whole scene. He goes, I didn't just kill the men, I killed the women and children too. It's like, oh god. Ugh.
Yeah, it's like, and then he says, like, I shouldn't feel these things, blah. It's like, you're not trying any type of control. You literally, at the beginning of the movie, in the first 30 minutes, said that you're ready for the Jedi trials to go from, which they don't explain that, what it is to become a Jedi Knight, a Padawan has to go through these trials of tests, and if they pass the test, then they can continue on. If they can't, they can get further training. But if they can't, then they have to go to a different sector, and they can't become a Jedi anymore. At least that's how most of it has gone in the EU. As far as I'm saying, I could be slightly off, but that's pretty much what the trials are.
Yeah.
That's not talked about, and
they're going
he's
to
being a little bitch in this. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they're going to explain some of that in the Clone Wars
Yes.
cartoon. Where he goes through he has to get the blue slug paint on his that has the slugs go across his body and leaves that blue trail or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's a whole different thing. I would love to talk about those at some point because those are really good. But the whole Smee stuff, it was kind of just I cared partially, but at the same time I'm like, it was so poorly done by Hayden Christensen, and the dialogue in there was really bad that I'm just like, you're ruining a potentially good moment in these. And I think so a lot about this movie. A lot is there's some moments that could have been awesome, but weren't awesome at all.
Mm-hmm. And then unfortunately this stuff isn't talked about even more. Mm-hmm. So eventually in the extended universe, he comes back as Darth Vader, and he kills more Tusken Raiders, so much so that they pretty much think of him as the devil. That's how fearful they are. Why couldn't they have done that moment longer too, where you saw more of a fight? Because I think that would have been cool. When he cuts the Tusken Raiders' head off, that's when I was really in that moment. And starting to go, oh yeah, this is really cool, because now you're also hearing the music, so you're hearing the Sith music and all that, and then we leave the scene. I'm like, oh
yeah, it does that wipe fade or whatever it's called. I'm like, and it's okay, now we're back to the boring stuff. Great.
Yeah, where it's those two again, and it's just their love story that's terrible.
Yeah. Okay, so let's keep going here a little bit further. The whole them getting captured and stuff. Count Dooku's I'm gonna capture you guys and kill you in an arena in a gladiator style fight, which again could have been freaking awesome, but no, it's dumb and full of dumbness. I didn't realize why they're getting executed. They're just getting executed because they're getting executed. Why were they getting executed in the first place? Just because Count Dooku's I hate you, I'm gonna execute you. Is that why? Or do they say why they're being executed?
I'm pretty sure it said it in the book, but it's pretty much just because they're Jedi. But then I don't know why Count Dooku even tried to say, make it seem like that wasn't going to happen. I think he's trying to save face, but it's obvious that he's against the Jedi, so it made no sense.
Yeah. I don't know. So I didn't get that. Whenever the creature, the CGI filled creatures come out, and we're I'm going to attack you, and that was kind of just okay, that was an interest. It was not even interesting. I'm just okay, these guys are gonna get taken down fast because they're Jedis or whatever. I think some of my notes here: Padme's back scratch, whenever that thing scratches her back, never talked about again. Not even in the same fight.
Yeah.
She's that hurts, and then 10 minutes later, she's I'm just fine, I'm walking. She even falls out of a freaking ship and rolls. You don't see blood, you don't see anything else. She's just I'm fine. I do think all the Jedi coming up is kind of badass though. All the Jedi when I was that's kind of cool. And Kit Fisto, Kit, he there's some comics I've read of him, but he just looks cool. I like that dude. He's for people that don't know, he's the green squid looking dude. And his part in the Clone Wars also is freaking awesome. The cartoon where he's underwater doing that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the whole fight sequence between the droids and stuff all right, whatever. Those droids are stupid. They cut through them like butter. They don't make any sense. They're just there for comedy. Why have them in there? The C-3PO battle droid thingy, where he's on the head. It's I called it a cheap gag, and I hated it.
But I do like how Kit Fisto handled that. I was that because it really, I think, shows his character. Because he could have just struck down that droid, but he saw oh, okay, this isn't a regular droid, and so he just force pushed it. I thought that was pretty neat.
That's pretty cool.
But I agree.
So I'm just kind of trying to run through these real fast. The clones arriving is cool, when Yoda, because Yoda's awesome. Listen, I like Frank Oz's Yoda. I think he's just he's better in the third movie. He's so much better in the third movie than this one. But Yoda arriving with other clones is okay, that's pretty cool. Even though I don't know why the clones are CGI, just it's have at least a group of 10 of them and then make the rest CGI or something. But all of them are CGI. It's like, and it's bad CGI, and it's like, okay, I don't like that. The Jango Mace Windu fight thing is kind of just like really fast and like sudden, and and whenever that Jedi lands by Count Dooku, why the hell does Count Dooku just look at him? He's like, oh, like aren't Jedi supposed to be able to sense that kind of thing?
Yeah, and he's a Jedi Master, and you see how quickly he's defeated, because I think that was one of the ones that was seated on the council that we see earlier in the movie.
And then Jango's like, pew pew, I gotcha.
And then dead. Yeah.
It's like, okay, all right. But then, the whole Mace Windu Jango fight, it's kind of like, okay, shouldn't it be Obi-Wan fighting Jango first of all? Because when Mace Windu doesn't even really know about Jango, maybe a little bit, but like he was just kind of there while Jango was there. And he's like, oh, he looks like a bad guy, let me fight him. And then his beheading just kind of happened, and I was like, that sucks. That was kind of dumb. I didn't like that. But and the whole like, what's his name? Boba Fett, the kid, picks up his helmet and puts it against it. And I'm like, okay, that's a little like it's a little heavy-handed. You're like, okay, that's a little too much, George Lucas. We get it. He could just say Boba, and people would know. But it's like, no, I'm gonna become the more useless of the two. I hate Boba Fett so much. I mean, he's a cool idea, but he just doesn't do anything. Again, stay tuned, and we'll get there. The fight between Dooku and Obi-Wan and Anakin is, again, way too choreographed. And I think Obi-Wan, who is way more trained than Anakin, is defeated way faster. And I didn't like that. Anakin fighting with two lightsabers is kind of cool, though. I was like, that's kind of cool. Not that cool. Not cool enough to redeem it, but it was kind of cool. I didn't get the whole point of him cutting the cord at the bottom, too, to make the lights turn off. All the lights are on in the whole rest of the place, but that one spot, it's like, oh, creepy. And then the whole cutting off his arm thing was cool, but they didn't focus on it enough, I don't think.
And then I was also going to point out, just real quickly, he cuts off Anakin's arm, and he had the potential to cut off Obi-Wan's arm and leg. Why did he only scratch him? It didn't make any sense to me.
That didn't make, right. I didn't get that either. But I didn't feel like, it just happened to Anakin. He didn't like react. He's just like, oh, that hurts, and then he got thrown back. It's like, okay, shouldn't it be more like, I'm gonna not gonna have a hand ever,
Yeah, like that's kind of what Jedi's need hands. Did.
Yeah.
His reaction, yeah.
What was? Oh yeah, when he's like, yeah, that's right. Because even if it cauterizes the wound, it still freaking hurts at the lasers going through your arms. And then the Yoda Dooku fight, I think is just disappointing. Because like it's a cool idea, because you're like, man, you get to see Yoda fight for the first time. This is awesome. And then he just like flips through the air and like does a bunch of acrobatics. It's like, okay. I think the fight in the third one between him and Sidious is a lot better, personally. But I'm like, okay, Yoda's supposed to be this huge Grandmaster Jedi. Why does he even need to use a lightsaber? Like, can't he just like crush Count Dooku? It's just like, hey, look at me, pop, there you go, you're dead. Instead, we get just like this, dumb fight sequence with stupid one-liners, like, oh, you've become powerful, but still much to learn, or whatever. It's like, okay, ugh, gag. And then whenever Dooku throws that big cylinder thing towards Obi-Wan and Anakin, Yoda seemed to have a real hard time holding that up. Again, isn't he like a grandmaster? Can he just like think about it with his one finger and like, whoop,
yeah, but he's hundreds of years old by that point, too.
That's true. I mean, that's a good point. But it's just like, okay, I just felt like Yoda, seeing Yoda in Episode 5 is awesome, because you're like, oh, this little green guy who's teaching, this young guy to do all this stuff. It's cool. And the idea of him fighting in these movies is also cool. But it's like, there could have been so much more. Again, I think it's better executed in Episode 3. Whatever. And I think my final thing I have in here is the secret wedding at the end is kind of forced. No pun intended. It just kind of happened. Didn't care. I'm like, oh, they're married? Great. That's fine. Even though the Jedis aren't supposed to love. Hey everybody, Noble Banks here again. And this is it, man. This is the end of part 1 of our 2-part prequel Star Wars extravaganza thing. So part 2's up right now. It covers the rest of Attack of the Clones and all of Revenge of the Sith. So go over, listen to that, and enjoy it. Thanks, folks.